Hello and welcome back. United Monologue, second week. I'm here again and very excited to be speaking to you. Thanks very much to everyone who watched last week. We were talking about, what were we talking about? Injuries, transfers and standards at the club. And it's time to talk again. This time I thought I'd talk mostly about the concept of the name of United. What are we united about? What are we supposed to be united over? What do we as fans have in common that makes us credibly and logically fans of the same club? Something that I think about quite a lot, because a lot of the time it doesn't seem like the fan base is very united, and it strikes me as linguistically slightly ironic. So we'll talk about that. In the meantime, leave a comment down below if you have anything to say about Manchester United, the club that we all love, or anything else, football related mainly, and we'll get chatting. Looking forward to replying to a few comments. So here we are, and the thing that most troubles me about the club right now is how much everybody involved seems to hate each other and how much we're all at each other's throats all the time saying, no, you're not a real fan if you X, Y or Z. And strikes me as being a very divided group at the moment. And like I say, sort of ironic, the name of the club is United, Manchester United. And so I thought I'd consider whether there are a few key principles that we all understand the club to be about, and things that whatever we disagree about, we can all get behind, because unity would be a good tool to use in moving this club forward and in understanding what's worth loving about the club and what we have in common and what we can all be proud of ourselves and each other for. So obviously not speaking from any place of authority, I'm just a guy who has been a fan of Man United for 30 years, and there are people who've been fans for much longer, and there are people who've only just discovered the club fairly recently, and they have just as much of a right to an opinion here as I do. So it's not that these are the definitive things. They're just kind of what I think, and let me know what you think. So let's get started. The first thing I think we could probably all agree is a United thing, a principle of Manchester United, is development of youth. United has a long history of bringing players through the youth ranks and into the first team and giving them a place, a platform upon which to establish a great career. Something like 87 years it's been since a matchday squad for Manchester United didn't feature a so-called homegrown player. There's a cool article which I'll link in the description on the club website recently about this and the detail of what exactly that means. But basically, every game United have played for 87 plus years has featured in the squad a player that was involved in the academy of the club, who played for the youth teams and came through at the club. And that's something we can all be incredibly proud of, I think. That's a principle that most clubs don't live by, and it's not something that United especially try to do, or it's just the way that the club has been since long before the Busby Babes. But it was really, I guess, enshrined with that great team in the 50s and with the tragedy of Munich and the rebuilding of the club through homegrown players, with George Best and Bobby Charlton and other wonderful players that came through the club, that lived and breathed the club as teenagers. They lived in digs in Manchester. They came from all parts of the country and even the world to be a part of something special. And then, of course, when I was growing up, the club brought through a great crop of youngsters, the class of 92. I remember first kind of thing I really remember about United, I guess, was seeing Giggs and then Beckham and Scholes and Neville brothers and Nicky Butt get their start. And particularly David Beckham caught my imagination. I remember when I was 5, 6 years old, doing maths in my head to figure out how old David Beckham would be when I was 17, say, so I could play on the same team as him maybe. Would he have retired by the time I assumed I would one day play for Manchester United, of course, but it never happened, weirdly. It was so exciting to me to see kids coming through and being part of something and getting their chance. And I think that continues to this day, of course, but United not only give young players a chance, but they give them a platform on which to develop great careers and to build and change over time. So seeing Giggs go from tricky, youthful, fast winger to calm central midfielder and become an elder statesman of the squad and become a player of experience. Seeing Scholes and Gary Neville particularly, taking that leadership role as they grew older and new youngsters came into the team. It's an important part of what I love about the club and what I think we can all think about and be proud of. So I think we do. I think we applaud and enjoy when young players come through in the team. Kobbie Mainoo, of course, last season really caught the imaginations, and scoring in the FA Cup final is just such a special thing that doesn't happen at other clubs. Seeing Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo teaming up to be great for the club, it's so exciting. And I'm looking forward to seeing Toby Collier and Sekou Kone and Chido Obi-Martin and Shea Lacey, hopefully, and many others coming through the academy and making a play for greatness in the first team. And this is a part of why I said what I said last week about how it wouldn't be so terrible for United to abandon the idea that you need to be totally competitive every single season. It might be kind of cool to accept lower finishes for a year or two and see how a young team beds in. The famous quote of "you'll not win anything with kids." Alan Hansen said that because Alex Ferguson seemed to have lost his mind in 95 when he sold Paul Ince and he sold Kanchelskis, and he changed the face of the squad completely. He got rid of some established, successful players who had won the league title twice in a row. And he made an important decision to refresh the squad when it needed refreshing, not to cling on to something that wasn't going to work forever. It's a very exciting thing about being a United fan is you're always, in theory, ready for the next crop of youngsters, ready for the next new story to begin. So that's something that I think we can all get excited about and we should all bear in mind and be grateful for. Something else I think is quintessentially United is attacking play. And this, I mean, the last couple of years particularly, it's been a little tough to see. We haven't been scoring a lot of goals, but certainly throughout my youth and for a long time before that, United were known for being bold and gung-ho and attacking and fast and risky. Obviously through the 90s, fast-flying wingers, Ryan Giggs taking the ball to the byline. The right-hand side with Beckham kind of cutting inside and Gary Neville overlapping. Neville always just underplays his brilliance, but he was just such an exciting element where you just get this speed and movement and attack. And that was a feature of the club. Obviously, being the best team in the country helps you to be brave enough to be attacking. And right now, I can understand why United teams aren't necessarily going quite as hard on the attacking ideal as they used to. But I still think that's a crucial part of the club, whether it's going to be with flying wingers or it's going to be with wing backs now under Amorim or some other version of this. I think United have always lived by the principle that it's better to try and win a game than to play for a draw. And there was a period under Ten Hag, I think at the start of his second season, where United just did not draw games. They either won or lost. And I remember thinking it was really cool because a sort of statistical quirk of football that people don't talk about nearly enough, I think, is how much better a win is than a draw. 3 points is not a bit more than 1. It's way more statistically. And it used to be 2 points for a win. Now it's 3 points, and it's disproportionately more. And so teams should be always trying to win and risking losing. And United do that, or used to. And that's a characteristic I think we can all get behind, because it's so much more exciting to watch a team flying forward in the 80th, 90th minute trying to win games. And even if United aren't that great and they lose a few more games than they might otherwise lose by being attacking, I'd rather see a United team trying to win games and trying to score goals and trying to be exciting and inspiring and ridiculous and creative. The best thing I've seen in the last 5 years is Garnacho's overhead kick against Everton. Just such an unbelievable moment. And you have to have a reckless brain to do something like that, to even try and do something like that. You have to have a total disregard for looking foolish or for failing or for being laughed at or told off. There's a special something in the mindset that allows someone to do that, and I'll never forget Alejandro Garnacho, whether he turns out to be a great Manchester United player or not. I love that he was mad enough and brave enough to try and do that, even, and that it came off is just tremendous. So attacking play, bold, risk-taking play, bravery, intent to win, that's a United principle I hope that we can all understand and get behind. What else is there, though? Because there isn't a specific formation now that is United. We're trying this 3 at the back thing. We used to play a sort of 4-4-2 under Fergie, but it was a 4-2-3-1, even with Dwight York dropping in as a kind of a false 9 or a 9.5. So there's no particular style of play. This is a phrase that I find difficult, that defines United. It's about intent to win in terms of style. That's my feeling. That's all I can ever come up with when I try and figure out what is Manchester United's footballing identity. It's about not settling and not playing it safe. I think that's exciting. Then there's a few other things, right? So I tried to rack my brains for a kind of a political ideology. And of course, United's a working class club. It's grown out of industry. It's grown out of relatively poor communities in cities, a city in the UK. It's got a specific human history. And I think that's important to remember as well, especially as ticket prices are going up and the way that the club is viewed in the marketplace is changing. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't even really know what to say about that. But I think it's very important not to forget who built United and why, from a human, a community, a political perspective. And that really leads me on to the final thing that I think is so obvious that we can all be united about, and it's kind of easy to forget right now. When it comes to who built this club and why, for what purpose does it exist, I think something we should all remember to be united about is disgust and disapprobation for the Glazer ownership. The fact that the Glazer family were able to take over United in the way they did, with a leveraged buyout that created an enormous burden of debt on the club, will never be okay. And even as we try to hold the new ownership to account, try to scrutinize the Ineos ownership, the decisions that are being made, the cost cutting, the ticket price rises, the job losses, even as we make an honest attempt to be thoughtful about that new situation. I think it's incredibly important we don't forget that what happened for the last 20 years happened and that it was completely un-okay. Because here's the thing, football clubs are not businesses. There's absolutely no way in which it should have been possible to do what they did. Essentially what happened, I'm sure you all know, but the Glazer family took over United by buying it with a loan secured against the asset that was the club itself. So it's like getting a mortgage when you buy a house. You borrow money from the bank, and if you fail to pay it back, the bank takes the house, right? So the Glazers bought Manchester United, and if they didn't pay back the money they borrowed to do that, the bank would take ownership of the club, right? That seems in one sense to be a normal thing to do in business. But United's not a business in the same capitalistic sense as any other given shop or business is. The thing about businesses is that they trade goods and services in exchange for money, and if they do well, they make profit, and if they don't, they don't. And no one cares that much about any given business. Sure, we have brand loyalties, we have interests. We may even have personal attachments due to family involvement in particular businesses. But if our local supermarket changes its policies or pricing in an aggressive or unpleasant way, we have the choice to go to another one. But a football club is not the same. You can't just decide to take your loyalty elsewhere. You can't become a Man City fan if you don't like what Manchester United are doing. It doesn't work that way because there's too much community and family loyalty history built in. And it's a lot more like a kind of public service or a community asset, a football club. It's something that people own themselves and contribute to the value in themselves. So everyone who's ever been to see Manchester United, anyone who's bought a shirt or watched on the television is contributing something to the story of Manchester United and the value of Manchester United. And there is just no way it should have been allowed. There's no way that risking the sanctity of that club, that community-owned asset, can be treated like a purely capitalistic exercise. It's a lot more like a government selling off schools or hospitals or other things. And there can be privately owned schools and hospitals, but if they're not set up in that way and if the community doesn't understand them that way, it's not okay to just flip the switch and say, oh, no, it's a business now, tough luck. So Manchester United should not be owned by anyone any more than any other football club in this country should, because they weren't set up to be profit-making business enterprises. They were set up by workers at particular businesses or people with particular shared interests as clubs. That's why they're called clubs and not businesses. They are owned by the people that work with them and run them. And we hear occasionally people talking about the person or people owning shares in Manchester United only really truly being stewards of this club with greater meaning than pure capitalistic business ownership. I'm rambling to some extent. What I'm saying, I hope you'll all understand and get behind, which is that we should never forget or get distracted about the fact that the Glazer ownership over the last 20 years has been truly disastrous to the interests and to the greatness and to the history of this club. And we all despise it equally, I'm sure, and we all feel that there is something to be righteously upset about. There is a shared indignation there that we can feel together and allow to bond us. So no matter what else you think might be wrong, remember that the club has been divested to the tune of way more than £1 billion, and it has been forced into the uncompetitive position it's in now in the marketplace by negligent and perhaps even malicious ownership. and deliberate misunderstanding of what the club is as an entity has allowed that to happen. We should all be furious about it forever and remember that that's something we can all get together to fight against and be united behind. So that's my rant about what unites us. Also, the colour red. We all love the colour red, of course. That's a very important issue that we should all remember. What else do you think? What am I forgetting? What am I missing? Is there anything else that's kind of crucial in the understanding of this club, the understanding of the fan base, the understanding of football? Am I ignoring something or am I misstating anything? Let me know in the comments, and do subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back every week, more or less, I think, give or take. And I might actually have some games to talk about soon. We've got Spurs coming up at the weekend. I think we're going to win. Got a good feeling. Feel like things are going to start clicking soon, and everything's going to move forward with great delight from now. I think I feel the tide turning, probably. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. It's a pleasure talking. I will look forward to discussing some of this in the comments with you all. And until next time, it's been my joy. See ya.